Good. All right. Call the City of Staples City Council meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. We'll get started right away with the approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Roy.
Second.
Second by John. Any discussion? Okay, not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carried. That'll move us to approve our consent calendar, which is the minutes of the previous meeting and payment of bills.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mary and second by Roy. Discussion? Okay, not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And move us to item 4, and that's a presentation by Haley Beal and for the Community Concern for Youth program. Welcome, Haley. Sure. Thank you.
All right, so I am Haley Beal. I'm with the Community Concern for Youth program in Todd County. Every other year I come and present to all of the Todd County City Council meetings to just give you guys an update about the program, things we have been doing within the last year. So I gave you guys a sheet there. It says our CCY funding, so we get money that comes from the city's schools. We get our grants as well and community corrections that help us do this program and serve the kids that are in need of it. So we get referrals from schools, county attorneys, social workers, parents, mental health workers, and law enforcement. So I work with kids anywhere from 7 to 17 years old in the schools of Todd County. I don't know if you guys passed the resolution or not for next
one.
Okay. So there for 2023 is the 4,090. For program statistics from June 2021 to June of 2022, it states there that we had 79 new cases in Todd County within the last year, 36 being those in the Staples School. We had terminated cases of 86, with 33 being closed out in Staples, and 27 out of those 33 completed the program successfully. We did 260 hours of community service work in Staples. So we go out to our community garden at the CLC. So we have kids plant the garden every summer. We have them come out and weed every summer. And then we have them harvest, and then we take all of that to the area food shelves in Todd and Wadena County. So this year we have about 500 pounds donated so far. Last year was about 1,600 pounds. I don't know if we're gonna get to that this year with the garden being the way it is, but we will continue to donate to the area food shelves, and then kids also get to bring that home as well. We had 80 volunteer hours in Staples. So we went around to the city parks, we went around to the schools, and we picked up all the garbage in the area. And had kids come out weekly to do that. So we go all around Todd County and do that as well. There was 36 school presentations that we did within the last year. So those down below, anywhere from sexting, social media, vaping, tobacco, bullying, internet safety. We go around to all the schools and present on those topics. We had 13 within the last year city council school board meetings. So on the years that I don't come here, I go to the school boards and I present the same thing. Within the last year, we did a bunch of CCY activities. So these are incentive-based activities, which, like I talked about with the community service hours and the volunteer hours, kids get to go and do fun things after they do their work. We've taken kids biking, kayaking, swimming, to movies, mini golf, fishing, and then we partner with, the Ticket for Kids, which they donate tickets to go to like Valley Fair, to the Twins games, things that are more bigger events. So they donate for that. Within the next year, I'll just continue to keep working with the youth, with the families, with the schools. And if you guys ever have any questions, feel free to contact me. My number and my email address is up there. And then if there's anything in Wadena County, my coworker Dan, he can help you guys as well. Do you guys have any questions or concerns for me today? Okay.
Questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for all.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, well, thanks for the info.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Yeah. All right, well then, we'll move on to item number 5, and that's to consider approval of a resolution 1880 authorizing participation with the Community Concern for Youth program with Todd and Wadena Community Corrections.
I'll move resolution 1880.
Okay, motion by Ron, second by Doug. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That'll take us to another presentation, and we have Todd County Sheriff Ock, Wadena County Sheriff Carr, Wadena City Police Chief, is that, how do you, Plotz? Plotz. And then our Staples Police Chief, Missy Burkholz here, so I don't know how you guys were.
Well,
We're gonna start out.
yeah, I think maybe by way of introduction, this is something that Missy and I have been talking about for a while. I think there's, probably by the general public, kind of a lack of awareness of what's going on in law enforcement in general. And talking to Chief Burkholz, just to try to put together a presentation to really, kind of explain and inform, the council and the residents of the area, what types of things law enforcement is dealing with these days. And I think this news clip here, hope the technology works. We'll give it a whirl, and then they're going to talk for a little bit.
No sound.
The BCA released its annual crime report, which shows 2021 was the third straight year violent crime has gone up statewide. Assaults against law enforcement also rose last year, and as Jay Coles explains, this spike in crime is not limited to the Twin Cities metro.
The spike in violent crime sticks when it hits close to home, and you're a traumatized victim. It's sad. I'm sad by the way.
I'm going to try plugging in the HDMI cable here and see if we can get the audio up on through the speakers.
This is a state that I've been in my whole life. It's never been this bad.
John says his wife had guns pointed at her and 2 children inside her car when several young men forced her out of her car and tried stealing her vehicle in Lake May.
6-year-old and 6-year-old niece. And yeah, they for sure continue to have flashbacks.
A life-changing moment.
We're always on alert. We're rethinking what we do. If we're going to go downtown, which we don't do anymore, rethinking where we go for Sunday school. I mean, it's really been it's impacted our family and impacted our lives overall.
And there were thousands just like John's family all across Minnesota in 2021. BCA crime stats show murders were up 8.6% and motor vehicle thefts jumped 8.5%. Overall, violent crime across the state rose 21.6%. The third straight year violent crime has risen statewide, and the jump includes Greater Minnesota.
Outside of the metropolitan area are seeing, I think this report showed a 16% increase outside of the metro area.
The head of the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association tells me he sees a direct correlation between the rise in violent crime to the shortage of law enforcement officers statewide.
And now they think they can get away with it. Look at police pursuits, for example. We're seeing an average around 300 pursuits per month, over 3,000 police pursuits in 2021, according to this report. We didn't see those numbers back in the late 2010s, 2010s.
And there was a 35% increase in assaults on officers, with 900 attacks in 2021. What does that tell you?
That tells me that, again, the criminal element is emboldened.
Finding ways to curb the problem is something state lawmakers could not agree on in the last special session. The vice chair of the House Judiciary Committee tells me the solution has to be a layered approach.
We had investments in prevention, as you talked about, juveniles, other community prevention efforts, and this is something that local jurisdictions, local communities would get to decide how they wanted to apply for that money.
Representative Kelly Moeller says she would like to see another special session to get a crime bill passed.
You know, I don't think anybody knows what the real cause of it is. It's complicated. I think experts think there are many different factors. However, there are different things that we can try to do in order to bring the crime down.
Now, violent crimes of bias also rose last year. The BCA says there were more than 270 victims of crimes motivated by bias. More than 40% of those victims were African Americans, Lindsay.
Well, Jay, what about use of force by law enforcement?
You know, the FBI requires this gets tracked as well. Use of force incidents, Lindsay, went down from 45 in 2020 to 30 last year. And of those 30 use of force incidents across the state, 13 people died statewide. 9 of those people were white, 3 were African American, and 1 case, they do not know the race of the person just yet.
All right, Jay Coles, thank you for that information. We appreciate it.
So we don't want to be here to be like Debbie Downer and just nothing but bad news, but we just, you know, in a lot of our conversations, we don't know how much you know or how much you want to know. This job is not even a shadow of what it was when I started. I'm in my 23rd year and it's nothing like it was. And at a time when we are scrutinized and watched at a higher level than ever, we have a smaller pool of applicants than ever. We have more mandates, more training, more, you know, it's just insane to think how far we've come in the last 5 years as far as what they're requiring from us and asking from us. And it's trickling down in that people are just leaving. I mean, we've had just a mass exodus of people who probably would have done another 5 to 10 years leaving. Things like sending Kim Potter to prison. If you're able to retire, you did, because it's not worth it anymore. And it's sad to say it that way, but that's how some people feel. And we're seeing a lot more people with that 5 to 10 year experience just getting out of law enforcement altogether. And it's sad, because it's still a noble profession. We still have pride, and I know in this community that we have great support from our council and from our residents. And we feel that. The problem is, you know, like they said, it's coincidental that the crime report just came out because it kind of reiterates what we're about to talk about. But, you know, what happens in the cities happens here too. And the mandates that they force on metro agencies because of something that happened down there, we have to do the same thing here. And it's building every year, and it's added strain. And I know, speaking for myself at least, we're very lucky at Staples Police to have kept who we've kept. We have a great group of officers, and I couldn't be prouder of the job that they do. So I'll let Naomi go next.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. Thank you very much for hearing us out and having us here tonight. Just to give you a little concept of my age, I've been in law enforcement 28 years, 24 of those with the Wadena Police Department. The last 9 have been the chief of police. And everything Missy says is, I echo all of it. I feel her pain, we all feel it, and we're just here to give you a kind of a glimpse or a snapshot of that tonight. The 2 sheriffs behind me are going to give you a lot more information too, but I just want to give you a few starters. To date, in law enforcement training, we are required to do 40 hours every calendar year to keep up our license. It's actually a minimum requirement of 48 hours every 3 years, but when you add in all the mandates that we have to have, that equals 40 hours every calendar year for every officer, whether they're a part-time officer or a full-time officer. Over 20 years ago when I first started, we only had to have 16 every calendar year to make that 48 every 3 years. And we struggled to get that. I mean, we did our mandated, firearms and use of force stuff, but we struggled to get those. And now We have to have 40 hours to make our mandatory minimums every year. I couldn't find another profession that has any more training requirements than what we do. I only found one that matches us annually, and that was an accountant. They have to have 120 hours every 3 years, which is 40 hours every calendar year. A couple next down, a physician, 25 every year, teacher, 25, psychologist, 20. You get the idea. But I was kind of stunned myself that no other profession was higher than our requirements for training. So another little tidbit here, in the city of Duluth, this last spring, I learned that they averaged 22,000 traffic stops every year. And in 2021, they made 6,000. They're scared to death to stop any cars because they don't know what they're going to get into or what's going to change their life completely. So that's a huge, huge factor. 22,000 down to 6. And that wasn't like, hey, don't stop anybody because of COVID or, anything. That was all generated by traffic stops. Another thing I really want to reiterate is the support that you give your police department, and it is amazing, and it really does go all the way down to Missy and down to her troops. At a Chiefs conference, I heard Chief of St. Paul, Todd Axtell, tell a story about when they had the riots in Minneapolis, and they were heading into St. Paul, and they were about to cross that bridge. And he told his command staff, do not let them cross that bridge. And they didn't. They held their line, and they retreated back and just stayed in Minneapolis and didn't go to St. Paul. And he said, you couldn't believe the amount of turnaround in their staff's mental health, and they just were overjoyed that they felt their chief and then their council and everybody else supported them and not letting that happen in their city or to those officers as well. So I will pass it along to the sheriffs unless you have a question for me. Okay.
Thank you.
Again, echo what the two chiefs said. The simple fact, I started in 1989 in this job, and it's a total different job than it was back in '89. Doug, you probably were in the same spot where we had to call what was called a pool line for a job, and you actually physically called a number and it'd tell you how many jobs were in the state of Minnesota at the time. A lot of times back in '89, there was 2, 5, sometimes if you were lucky, there was 8 to 10. I pulled up the stats yesterday morning, and there are 90 agencies within the state looking for police officers at this time. And out of those 90, there's multiple jobs. Minneapolis alone is down over 300 police officers out of a 800 some man department. Out of these job opportunities, we didn't have these opportunities like this. If you read through this, I can leave it with you guys. There's incentives, hiring bonuses of anywhere from $2,500 to $10,000 in these jobs alone. They're front-loading vacation. They're trying to get people to come to their agencies. And what's going to happen too with that is you're going to get bad blood between agencies, because if Mike Carr takes 2 of my guys because he can offer an $8,000 bonus, it's just going to make bad blood, and we're not going to work as well together. It hasn't come to that yet, but I can see it's going to happen. Now you got all these openings here, and I was a graduate of Alec Tech. This is just from 2010 to 2021. They graduated just about too shy of 300 in 2010, and under half that last year, 128. Skills in 2010 was 173 students, 63 last year. I got a hold of Hibbing, a guy that's on their board, and he said last year Hibbing graduated 14 kids. When you're graduating this many kids with the amount of jobs that are out there, we're not even filling the retirements. So that's one of the things that's crushing us right now is hiring. I mean, it used to be where when I was looking for a job, you were typically lucky if it was 40 people. Typically it was 80 to 100. I went to one job interview one time, or to fill out the deal for them, and I was down in Rochester, and I believe there's over 700 applicants for that job. Those days are long gone. Now we're actively recruiting people, hiring bonuses, all that good stuff. So just It's a totally different job, so. Hard to get people to do this job, and I can just ask you one question. Would you want your kids going into law enforcement right now? My daughter wanted to go into it, and I said, absolutely not. You're not doing it. Sad to say, it's still a noble profession. It's a great profession, but right now it's just something I wouldn't want my child to go into, so. Having said that, I'll let Sheriff Carr here finish us off.
Thank you, Council and Mayor, for allowing us to come in and talk. Yeah, I don't know if they had the pool line when Doug started this job. I don't know if they.
I had a roller back
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. So, but, you know, it's, I've been in this job for 28 years and 16 years as sheriff. And I remember exactly what Sheriff Fox said. You go to these places and you apply for these jobs. St. Cloud Police Department back in the day, I think it was like 400 and some applicants trying to get in for one job, you know what I mean? And so one of the things that I've even seen since I've been the sheriff in 16 years was, you know, we were right around that 30 to 50 mark of applicants. Our last 2 hires, we've had less than 10 people apply for jobs with us. Out of those 10, half of them are ineligible even to get to the next round of the application process. I think it's just important, you know, the state of law enforcement that we're in. I know you're a city council that supports your law enforcement, but it's always good to hear from other sheriffs around the area and your chiefs, but we're gonna be in some tough times here. And I really believe that if we don't have city council and county commissioners that understand what we're gonna be going through, we're gonna have a tough road ahead of us. It's gonna get expensive, I think. I think the profession to hire good law enforcement, it's gonna cost you a lot more money to keep people. And like the sheriff said, there's a lot of people that are offering lateral transfers. Never even would have heard of anything like that. I mean, if you left a job, if you've been here for 10 years and you decide you want to go work for Wadena County or Todd County, you're going to start at the bottom of the pole and you're going to start at their starting pay. And I can tell you, we've done lateral transfers just to come to Wadena County Sheriff's Office. Otherwise, we're not going to get people to come and work for us. You know, about 10 years ago, I seen my first ever where there were signing bonuses. It was a magazine I was reading out of California, and I couldn't believe it. You know, it was a $10,000 signing bonus, and here we are in Minnesota now. If you look on that poll line that the sheriff was talking about, Minnesota was seeing it. You know what I mean? And so it's pretty incredible. And you know, I think the demonization of law enforcement by government officials, I can honestly say that's the 7 metro area where that's come out of. But there's 600 law enforcement that came out in this profession this last year. Between Minneapolis Police Department, State Patrol, they got well over 600 and some openings. So it's gonna be tough to keep people here. And I think, like I said, I know you guys are a good city council that supports your law enforcement, but thank you for allowing us to come in tonight. And if there's any questions you have.
Is there any movement of the Sheriff's Association or Police Chiefs Association to go, as far as I know, I guess I don't keep up with it that much, but as far as I know, the laws really haven't changed, so the laws are still out there to be enforced. Isn't the stumbling block more at the county and city attorney levels and the judges, and is there any movement to try to push that for them people to actually do their job and prosecute these people and that type of thing rather than?
I know what you're talking about. I mean, there is a lot of frustration towards law enforcement sometimes with the judges that are coming out. There's a lot of not people being held accountable is what we see, Doug. And that's very frustrating on our part because we're out here putting, you know, we're investigating a case and stuff like that. And a lot of paperwork, you know, you're making an arrest for the victim of this crime. And no sooner than you sign the paperwork, they're out the door sometimes. And so, yeah, there's definitely a push from the Sheriff's Association, I know the police chiefs, of holding the higher standards of the sentencing guidelines is what I'm trying to get at. You know, where legislation needs to step in a little bit more with that and say, you know, here's the line in the sand, and if you commit this crime, this is how many days in jail you're going to get, or this is what you're going to be sentenced to, because judges really have a lot of discretion. you know, and that's the unfortunate piece that we see in law enforcement, you know. But, yeah, it's definitely a push.
There's a push for transparency.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we, you know, it was starting our, you know, back when I was in there, that, you know, they were dismissing cases or not charging them out, even though they're good cases. And, matter of fact, one of the last ones I worked was, the guy got to serve 2 months of his time in the jail of his choice, and should have been about a 10-year felony, but.
Yeah. I think honestly, Doug, if you would have seen this last 2 years, what we've seen with after COVID, I mean, you wouldn't have gray hair, you'd have no hair. I mean, it is really frustrating because the justice system doesn't make people accountable like they should. And we see it out here, and that's unfortunate. Our county attorney in our county makes people accountable. It goes from there, though. I mean, it's still, at the end of the day, it's.
Right, I mean, the criminals think you know, they think they can just walk out of there, and when it does finally get to the court, most likely they will.
Right.
It appears to me anyway, and I think that, you know, I mean, the judges get paid with tax dollars just like everybody else and involved, and you know, I would think that they're, you know, the Police Chiefs Association, I mean, you watch it on the news every day that there's people just, you know, throwing rocks at the cops and doing that kind of stuff, and it's you know, you see it, you understand it, but.
When you see and you see all these carjackings that are happening, I mean, you know, eventually that stuff is gonna leak into outstate Minnesota. But, you know, these carjackings, and you see these people have been arrested half a dozen to a dozen times for the same offense, you know what I mean? You know, as a victim of a crime, I mean, you can't imagine. I hear some of the horror stories where people are just trying to get out of the metro. They're moving out state. But yeah, I mean, I know our association, I know the police chiefs, those two associations we're pushing for better guidance with our judges. Hold them accountable, because at the end of the day, you know, they get the final decision in that.
And it does appear to be a trend in recent years, is that they don't want people in jail as long. So that's, you don't see these sentences that I don't agree with a lot of, is you think they should be there a lot longer than they are. It's been a trend in something accelerating, and it's not just Minnesota, it's nationwide.
I mean, it just seems like there should be some way to put some pressure on this, on the upper part of the system that would be something that, you know, so that these judges aren't so just willy-nilly letting people go and turn them out, and you know, judges are appointed by the governor, you know, and you know, so I mean, you'd think.
And I think it all starts right here. The elected officials in front of us. It starts with your county commissioners. When it comes to these laws, it has to be pushed by legislation to get those sentencing guidelines where they're more direct, you know, and say, don't make it to the point where they have so much discretion in their decision making. But it comes from city council, it comes from everybody. I mean, the public itself. I mean, anybody can call their legislation and plead with them on this. But that's one of the things I know that we're always got the ear. We got people and lobbyists that are trying to, but it all comes down to votes, and they've allowed that. But somewhere along the line, they got to get tougher.
And I've also noticed on the time that I've been on the council and also serve on the Lakewood, our hospital board, the escalation in mental illness and suicide calls that your officers are having to, you know, one time we had a Staples officer at the hospital with somebody for 16 hours. Right. And we don't do that anymore because we've worked out an arrangement. But that's 16 hours that our city didn't have, or we had to look for help from the county or pull somebody else in. And they're in when we did an addition, we built 2 safe rooms. Those rooms are full. And people have been in there for months because you can't get them placed either. And jails are not the place for people with mental illness problems either.
We just had a meeting yesterday with Lakewood in reference to mental health. I don't know, I probably didn't 15, 20 in the last 2-3 years. It's gone off the charts.
Yeah.
There's so much mental illness out there right now. Then the state closed all the facilities down. So we used to be able to, if we had somebody with mental illness, we'd bring them to Rainier was probably the closest at the time.
Fergus
Fergus Falls, we'd take a lot of people there. Those are all shut down. You got facilities that can house 50+ people. Now we have what's called CBHH, where they have 6 to 10 bed facility, and they're scattered all over the state. And it's sad to say, when we have somebody with mental illness and they get a commitment, I'd say 7 out of 10 that we transport go to far more to go to a different state. That's where we have to go.
You know, and that's the other thing, and just so you guys know, 90% of inmates in county jails, Sheriff, you kind of made a good point yesterday.
Yeah.
It's the largest in your entire county of where the mental health issues are.
Every 2 years, we have to get our jails inspected, and by the DOC, Department of Corrections. And the last inspection we had in Todd County, I always go with him and walk around, and he told me, he said, the largest mental health facility in every county in the state of Minnesota right now is the county jail.
And that runs
Yeah, and that's,
yeah,
we talk about that too, that's not doing them any good, nor is it doing our
It's hard on the
system.
staff, it's,
Yeah.
they're very, it's one-on-one with these people, it's, for lack of a better term, it's insane how bad it's got.
Right. You know, when we, all 4 of us, when we started this career, we maybe had 2 or 3 mental health calls you'd get a month, right? I mean, you have suicidal, welfare checks. Now you can have average of 2 or 3 a day. I think we had 9 in a 24-hour period in Wadena County last week, you know, so.
And it's all ages, it's
Oh,
children.
yeah. And we had a couple teenage kids, you know,
Yeah.
that we had
and
suicidal.
people like me,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that people don't, you know, it used to be, I don't wanna say efficient, but with the new mandates and new policies that goes forward and new statutes, new supports, different things, the amount of time that we're spending on these calls, we used to go in, if they were suicidal, in 10 minutes, you were taking them to the hospital, you're taking them to Brainerd, and sometimes now you're there an hour, or you're trying to de-escalate, or you're doing all this other stuff to try to avoid getting to the ER, knowing that you get them to the ER and they're probably gonna get kicked home anyway in an hour. You're gonna be back there. So it's hard on that end, and it's hard on the front end, because a lot of times these guys are taken out to the ER, we've already spent hours with them at their home. And try to do all the de-escalation and all that stuff.
Well, and you have a crisis team you can call. There's times those crisis teams can take an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to your scene. Well, you tie up a law enforcement officer in the city of Staples or Wadena County or Todd County for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Yeah, you got other calls that are taking place. And so it gets difficult, because then we always want to have a good working relationship with our hospitals, but here we're not going to bring them around in the squad, we're not going to bring them to jail, so then now you're bringing them to that ER because we're that lesser level of care. And so.
So as administrators, how are you motivating your people? How are you getting them to go out there and patrol and protect the public? Like that's what. Well, I know, but I mean that's what we're paying for. Is
Right. So I'll tell you what, Doug. I'm I'll just talk on my behalf of what I have in Wadena County. We have a very good group of patrol. You know what I mean, and senior guys that have been there and done it for a while, too, so that helps. But yeah, I mean, it affects everybody. You guys turn on the news just like we do when it comes to law enforcement, and we see that frontline news every single night. It's always something involving law enforcement, right? For the longest time, we demonized the heck out of law enforcement, and so our guys, looking at that, I think I had guys that were getting close to thinking, you know what, maybe I need to go find a different profession. But you hope they dig deep, get through the tough times of the storm, and hopefully on the back end, we're gonna come out on the light side of it, So it's been difficult.
You just let them know that you're there with them.
Right.
The Minnesota cities have been pushing pretty hard the last few years
Yeah.
in mental health. For our law enforcement, first responders, everybody, it's physical health, mental health, emotional health. We gotta take care of our people, and they're not gonna be able to take care of our citizens. And there's been a big trend, even in training now, for officer wellness and suicide prevention. I got a thing from the League of Minnesota Cities the other day, I think, I want to say it was like 30%, is that what you said? 30% increase in PTSD claims by law enforcement in 2021. And chicken or the egg, which one it is, you know, if it's people that can't deal like they used to, or if it's just different problems, I don't know what it is. It's just, it's that scenario where your cup's full and every little drop makes your cup run over. And I think we're all just getting tired, so all the extra stuff is just.
I think we're seeing a big dip in morale. Is when they started talking about taking away qualified immunity. I had several deputies say, if that gets taken away, I'm out, I'm gone. And thank God it didn't happen, but they start talking like that, and everybody was like, well, God, if I do anything, now it's gonna be my house, it's gonna be, I'm going to jail, I'm going to, you know, so it was, when they were seriously considering that, it was difficult. I mean, try to talk these guys up the ledge, come on, let's go, you know, it's not a done deal yet, you know, it's got, let it run its course, and like I said, didn't pass, thank God, so it kind of eased things a lot, and people definitely got back to some sort of normalcy.
And on the same line of that, states that surround us, North Dakota, Wisconsin, some of those police departments, sheriff's offices have SWAT teams together, drug task force, and so a lot of those states, the borders said, we're not coming over to Minnesota because of that. Red River Valley's got one of the best SWAT teams around in the state, and they're combined with Fargo, Moorhead, Clay County, and Cass County Sheriff's Office, and
Well, please express our thanks to your officers and know that we're doing what we can to support and help out.
thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Have you guys ever had any questions?
Yeah.
Sure, I'll speak for all of us. Give a call and answer the best we can.
You guys' hands are tied. You know your job, and somebody up on the top is telling you, you don't know your job, and it's wrong.
Right.
But how do you stop the people that sit behind a desk and never do what you do, and they make these policies that don't even make any sense?
Right.
How can you get them out, so to speak?
Well, we can get them out. It's just that you gotta get people.
Takes everybody.
Takes everybody, and I think, but you bring up a good point, Roy. It does. I mean, it obviously affects your mental health when you see the same things day in and day out and from the top down. But I think it really takes a swing in legislation to get some of these rules and laws passed and where law enforcement feels supported, you know. And I don't know, I like I said, I mean, I hope that we make a comeback again in this profession. I like to, hopefully, maybe it might be, but it's gonna be, we're gonna see the tough times before we see the other end of it again. Well, you know, I can tell you for our office, our guys won't go to work without a body cam anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wanna be protected that way. And so that piece of equipment and in-car computers, everything that we have now, technology, I know that's a huge expense, but I'm gonna tell you as council, and you guys know this already, public safety is not cheap. You know, we're very expensive that way, but on the flip side of it, we're also there to protect lives and save property.
Yeah, I can tell you when we started having to tape our drunks back in the day, I made the statement that there goes our integrity right there, because you no longer, when you went to court, your word wasn't the gospel, wasn't the truth, you know, there was doubt, and they were always fishing through those tapes to find, and then pretty soon it was recording in the car, and then, you know, everything had to be recorded, and it just, you know, when I started, you went and you raised your hand and swore that you told the truth, and that was the truth, and if you got caught lying, you might as well just quit, because you no longer were able to, but all of a sudden we come under the scrutiny of video recording and all that other stuff, and it's.
Yep. And there's nothing on the statute books that says you have to have any of that stuff recorded. you know.
But a lot of prosecutors will also say if it ain't on camera, it didn't happen.
Exactly.
It's gotta be on camera. Otherwise, I don't know about it.
And we definitely, I will say is I think, you know, the stuff that we have for that technology, it does keep us out of court a lot more now. I mean, you put that in, defense attorney sees it and it's like, what are you gonna fight on? So, I mean, there's pros to that way too.
I found the complaints against deputies with the body cameras, I bet you close to 90+% of them are totally unfounded. They'll say this happened, we'll watch the body cam footage, and going, no, it didn't. And yeah, very professional. And probably 99% of the time, like I say, it's people, I think, like the clip said, are just emboldened and they just want to make a complaint just to try to get somebody in trouble, I think, sometimes.
Any other questions or comments? Well, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having us.
It's always good.
Just know we're behind you.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Comes from the top.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, we'll move on to item number 7, and that would be to open or to have a public hearing for the paving of Airview Drive. So with that, I'll open that public hearing. I guess, you know, I don't know if you want to give any information. I don't know if, I know Maridel and Rick or who's all here for what, but.
Yeah. So the council did provide some direction to staff to move forward with the paving of Airview Drive. Part of that process, because there would be assessments for those improvements, is to hold a public hearing, provide information about what the cost would be on those. And in your packet, there's a spreadsheet that basically kind of lays out the costs. Basically, property owners, Staple Square Apartment, Granite City Real Estate, and Robert and Maridel Wamhoff. And you can see over on the right-hand column what the total assessed cost would be. The Wamhoff property falls under our assessment guidelines for a corner lot, you know, 100% of the short side, 50% of the long side. So that's where some of the, you know, that negative 1,900 comes in. So 25% of the cost of that long side is picked up by the other 3 property owners, and then the city is picking up the other 25%. So those totals 100%. As far as the assessment with bituminous, generally we go 5 years, and the last one we did, Sunrise Drive, was at 3.5%. Which I think is still a reasonable interest rate on that. Or the property owners can pay it all on the front end and not incur any assessment. But we did get a estimate from a local contractor. That's where the 28.4 comes in, which I think for that road is, well, it's about $10,000 less than we were estimating early on. So I don't know if anybody is here, you know, for that or not. I don't think so.
Well, Maridel, did you want to say something, or?
Well, I kind of want to know what kind of money we're looking at for our property.
Okay, yeah, and
That's Wamhoff.
yeah, so grand total would be $1,939.72.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, I see, all right. Yeah, I'm in favor of it. Big time.
It's a lot of dust.
Lots of dust. If I didn't have those shrubs along Fairview Drive, it'd really be awful.
Right across the street. Yeah, if anybody else has any comments, or you didn't receive anything from any of the.
I did not hear a thing, and Scott was gonna let me know if he heard anything, so I think, you know, I think for the most part, people think it's a good project, it's overdue.
Most of it's deciduous. Okay, well, If there's no other public comment, we'll close the public hearing. And we don't have to take any action then, Gerald?
We can, just because Scott is not here, I think what we want to do is actually order the improvement next time, just in case something came in his mailbox or whatever, from any of the other property owners. But we'll just put
One
it
more
on
question.
Yeah.
When do you think this is gonna take place?
this fall, yeah.
This fall?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been waiting 18 years. I kept keeping quiet about it, waiting for somebody else to. Because I don't have interest in it other than I use it all the time.
Well, yes, yeah.
No, it's gonna be a nice improvement for the apartments and
Yeah,
stuff. And, you know, like, I can't imagine the dust that you,
it's a lot.
yeah. Well, good. Well, thanks for your feedback.
Sure.
Thanks for coming. And then now we'll move on to another public hearing, and that's regarding our 2023 through 2027 capital improvement plan. So we'll open that public hearing.
So, the council has had the opportunity to go through this a couple of times, but each year, the council holds a public hearing and approves of, basically a 5-year capital improvement plan. And I think maybe with the council's blessing, I'll just kind of run through 2023 quickly, since that's what we would be talking about going into next year's budget. And then if there's any questions on the other years, we can talk about that. So basically, fire department, mobile radios, turnout gear are two that we have on there. So those dollars would go into the replacement funds. Continue to put money away for the LETG to Zerker software conversion for the police department. Body cameras, 27,000 for 2023. I think heard some testimony as to the value of that tonight. Set of riot gear, taser replacement, and some updates to our evidence room for 2023. Within Park and Rec, looking at $25,000 for playground equipment. Pavilion roof out at Dower, storm shelter construction, and replacement of the golf cart out at the parks. Playground equipment, anticipate that going into reserve. We don't necessarily have a playground identified that we're going to replace the equipment yet, but as we learned this year, it's more expensive than we think when you get into it. So. Street department, a lot of these are repetitive from year to year. More replacement, sidewalk replacement, the street overlays and maintenance, seal coat and crack sealing, snow blower, and V-plow for the street department, one of the pickup trucks. Boiler replacement and HVAC improvements at the community center, obviously with the sales tax referendum here this year. Some of the community center stuff for 23 and 24 and so forth will be a little bit dependent on what happens there. AMI, kind of the final equipment coming out of the light fund for AMI in 2023, and looking to replace a bucket truck in 2023. Water, the AMI, so you've got, with the AMI, you've got the electric meter stuff and also the water nodes. So two different components that'll be read automatically. Want to replace one of the trucks in the water department. And then looking to do 4th Street Southwest, that Minnesota Avenue to Wisconsin Avenue block down there. And you'll see that both in water and sewer. So if we're tearing the street up, we're going to replace them both. Lift station cutter replacement. And you see the 4th Street sewer side of the world there. Some new dialers for the lift stations. 80 building upgrades out at the airport. Painting at City Hall and the police station. And also some carpet replacement at the City Hall and police station. So hard to believe, 12 and 13 years old, I think the buildings are already, so. You know, looking into 24, 25, I'll maybe just, you know, kind of go down and highlight some things. Obviously, the community center there is $1 million, kind of dependent on that sales tax. Another $25,000 for playground equipment. I have kind of a tentative Wilson Park down on there, but that hasn't been determined for sure yet. The final AMI stuff in the water department, the water nodes, would happen in 2024. We looked at trying to do them all in 2023, but we can't get them. So that's becoming a challenge. Jumping into 2025, you know, we've got it on there, kind of on the radar, do something with the light shop. That facility and offices for our light department. Digger derrick truck, look at making a change and upgrade there. And the other thing that we've got on here in 25, 26, 27 is that whole regional trail thing that we started looking at a few years ago. Talked a little bit about it at EDA here tonight, about local trails versus regional trails. And I'm kind of keeping it on there so it stays on our radar, so if the opportunity does present itself, we can get on board with that. Jumping into 2026, you know, kind of the bigger items, you know, that trail, obviously, we want to look at kind of a combination unit, a steamer, a Vactron, and a jetter that can be utilized by all of our public works departments. And down into 2027, you have it on the radar for replacing the 1997 pumper truck at the fire department. So I don't know if there's any questions. Like I say, the council has had a couple of different looks prior to tonight at this, but if there's any input, council wants to change anything?
Any public hearing? All right, I guess if there's no other feedback, we can close the public hearing. That would move us to item number 9, and that's consider adopting the 2023 through 2027 capital improvement plan.
So moved.
A motion by Mary.
Second.
Second by Roy. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, we'll move to item number 10, and this is consider approval of the 2022-2023 school resource officer agreements with Central Lakes College and Staples Motley ISD 2170.
So in your packets, there's copies of both agreements. Central Lakes College one is first, Staples Motley Schools is the second one in the order. School board did approve the Staples Motley one last night at the school board meeting. So should be good to go for the 2022-2023 school year.
I'll move approval of the SRO agreements with the Central Lakes College, Staples Campus, and the Independent School District of Staples.
Second. Okay, motion by Ron, second by John. Discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 11 is committee reports. We have Park and Rec.
Park and Rec Board met back on July 12th. Talked a little bit again about the sales tax referendum. Lacey updated the group on swimming lessons, which were almost done at that point. Also reviewed a couple of different options for the treadmill that the Pat Miller Memorial donation is going to go towards. And there was a motion made for what treadmill to purchase. So that has been ordered. Talked a little bit about the Wilson Park irrigation installation. That has not happened yet. I'm not quite sure if John is waiting for parts or what, but we do want to get that in here this year. Fortunately, this summer's we've had timely rains, but I want to get that done yet this fall. Updated the board on the 2 playgrounds that were installed, and sail shades are up. Software, that CampSpot software is working well. Next year, I believe it will work even better because everybody will surely be aware that we are a reservation-based campground at that point. There's been a handful of issues. Talked about 2023 tree planting. John Gorton is going around kind of doing an inventory. Looking at ordering 20 maple trees to basically do some infill planting next spring. Dower Lake storage, or campground storage waiver, and I've got a bullet item on here for the storage waiver. We haven't previously allowed seasonal campers to leave their campers at the campground. It is a recommendation of the Park and Rec Board, allow them to do that, and there's also a copy of the proposed storage waiver in the packet. Great way to make sure they're coming back. When you want to store their camper there, they have to have their deposit for the following year. So, and that was talked a little bit about the caboose, promoting use of the swimming pool to the PT folks out at Lakewood, and just spraying some weeds on the trail. So that was the end of that meeting.
Okay, any questions or, well, do we have so we need to authorize that?
Yeah, if council wants to authorize the winter storage of campers and RVs out at Dower and along with that storage waiver.
And we assume no liability.
Right, because we're taking there's no fee associated with it, so.
I'll move the Dower Lake Campground storage waiver to be approved as stated in the minutes or packet.
Second.
Motion by Ron, second by Mary. Any discussion? Okay, not hearing any. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, unless there's any other questions, Park and Rec? Okay, move on to planning and zoning.
Planning and Zoning Commission met on Thursday, August 16th. Couple of items on the agenda. One, the Planning and Zoning Commission did set a public hearing date for the conditional use permit application, which had been submitted by Minnesota Farmers Union for the meat cutting operation that's proposed to locate out in the industrial park. Under a general industry classification in our zoning ordinance, the meat cutting type activity is a conditional use, so we need to go through that process. So the commission did set that for the September 20th meeting. So we did have Gary Wordish and Carol Anderson with us via Zoom, talked about the project, answered questions that the commission members had, and then they'll also join us for that public hearing as well. So then we continued our discussion on the mobile food unit stuff, and I think we clarified some stuff. I'm not suggesting it will be done next month, but starting to kind of narrow in on it a little bit. So that was pretty much it for planning and zoning.
So with that too, you have a couple appointments that you're,
Yep, Tara has been advertising for planning and zoning. We had 2 vacancies currently on the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have received 2 applications. One application from Kurt Wilson, the other application from Michael Logajan. I don't know for sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but I'm pretty close. Logajan. And those are the 2 that we have received, so.
I guess, so you have two seats?
2 seats.
You have 2 seats, I have 2 people.
Yeah.
It's easy.
If you, council feels that those candidates are qualified to sit on a P and Z, I would entertain a motion to appoint them.
So move.
Both candidates?
Yep.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a second by John. Any discussion, comments, questions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That moves to open forum. Anybody? Okay, no one wants to speak. Gerald, yeah? Oh, all right. You were waiting till the last second, Rick?
Oh, yeah. Well, I kind of read with interest the issues with the golf carts in the paper a couple weeks ago, and that there was a process for a permit. Well, I never heard of that before. And I've had a golf cart for 30 years. Most of the time it's been at the golf course, but I do have one at home now, and I use it a lot for errands and for running my junk over to the city's branches and leaf clippings and all that sort of thing. And I pick the trail from the bus garage to the overpass 4 or 5 times every summer. And I use it for that. And when I get the form here, it looks like it's really laid out for somebody that has a disability, that they need it for the disability. And I'd be kind of disappointed if I couldn't have my golf cart to run my errands with because I don't have a disability. I mean, I walk and ride my bike miles every day, and it would be a lie to say I need it for health reasons. Quite a few years ago, there was an old man that lived at the manor, and his wife was in the care center. And that's probably the first golf cart that was running around a lot. And I asked him, because I was actually during a lot of that period of time, I had Dr. Bredemeyer's cart at my house, and I'd go pick him up in the afternoon. We'd go out for a ride up through a villa, different places, or on the trail behind the grocery store. And I asked this man, I think his name was Hutchinson. I said, when you started this, do you have any hassle with the police? And he said, no. He said, I went and talked to the chief. She said, stay sober and you'll be fine. And he, if he filled out an application, I don't know, but apparently it was a fairly well-kept secret that if there's only been one applied for it ever since that ordinance was in fact in place. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. And of course, one thing I thought might be just as important worrying about golf carts is all the noisy vehicles on the streets today. And I know they've got hassles, and those same people are emboldened because they know the cops have got more than they can handle. But they just, from the big trucks to the motorcycles and everything in between, it's just unbelievable, the noisy vehicles that are running around. I just thought maybe that might be just as important to lean on that a little bit as Anyway, I've got my application filled out. It doesn't have anything about a disability, but I'm certainly turning it in, and hopefully we'll keep on doing what we're doing. I mean, if you got kids running around, that's one thing, deal with it. But if it's adults behaving themselves and doing their day, going about their business and behaving themselves, I don't see where there's a problem. But I rarely take it downtown. Well, one day last week, I did, after I got up to the airport, to the overpass with my trailer and a bunch of junk, I was gonna take it to the city garage because I had way more than I could put in my dumpster at home. And who do I meet? I meet Doug on the corner right on by the post office that day. And I rarely take it downtown. Once in a while, I'll take my gas can to the gas station because I don't want to put them in the trunk. But other than that, I just,
So you the
like
one
I
who
say.
was driving recklessly?
Were you speeding?
Anyway, I just wanted to,
Pretty hard to drive recklessly on a golf cart, but it sure is easy to do it on safely. And I think our ordinance isn't written probably quite right, and I made that statement at the time when I talked about that, but I think that, you know, there probably is a you know, okay scenario for them to be on the road, but the incidents that I encountered, I mean, I've seen many people.
yeah.
Richard Clokey drives by my house, and it's never a problem, but these were probably somewhere between 10 and 12-year-old kids. And they were right in the middle of the street, and the sun was shining right in my windshield, and I couldn't see, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there they are. But it was, you know, that was the comment I made, but I never really ever have agreed with that ordinance.
Yeah,
Since
and it was probably
since it
done.
was, because it really didn't make any sense to me, because it's something about, you have to have a disability, but you have to be able to have a driver's license, or.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's a whole bunch of.
It said, yeah, if you don't have a driver's license, then you gotta put the reason why you don't.
Yeah, you gotta, yeah, it's,
So,
And I've got it listed on my insurance, and I got no problem with being registered, but.
yeah, well, and just, I guess, by way of education on this, and I don't consider myself an expert, but it is state law that in order to operate golf carts on public roadways, the city has to pass an ordinance designating the roadways, you know, and designating the criteria. Our ordinance was passed in 2004.
Was it really?
And so, you know, that's 18 years ago. And the disability thing was part of what was put in, you have to have a cdisability, and you have to have a note from your doctor saying that you can safely operate the golf cart. I don't see that requirement necessarily in state statute. It does say the ordinance may require, as a condition to obtaining a permit, that the applicant submit a certificate signed by a physician that the applicant is able to safely operate the golf cart. You know, it says may, but I don't see that it requires a disability. So it may be something that we want to take a look at. And you know, I had received a phone call from Lakewood, and, you know, Lakewood has that cart, and they take the residents, you know, around, and, you know, what do we need to do? Well, with their current ordinance, it's pretty tough unless one of the passengers gets a permit. So I would suggest we take a look at what we really want. You know, I think when you're dealing with minors running around, you know, whether it's on four-wheelers or golf carts, it's not a good idea. But I'm not aware that we have a lot of adults running around causing trouble on their golf carts, except Rick.
yeah, I think golf carts are a small part of the issue. The big issue, or one of the.
18 miles an hour.
But you know, going back to that noise thing, we were in Iowa for a funeral yesterday. We went Sunday afternoon. And this town where we were is right on a very busy northeast-west road. And we went up early yesterday morning and went for a walk we walked about a 3/4 of a mile up the road. And there were lots of traffic and lots of trucks. And there were no noisy ones. They were there, the ones with the big chrome pipes, but they were soft on the throttle, and there was no brakes, no jack brakes. They had to respect, and I suppose they've been taught to respect. But it's, you know, it's frightful here.
Yeah.
That's all I had to say. Can I leave this here with you guys tonight?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
City Administrator's report.
I am extremely happy to report that the Jerry Falk House is gone. along Second
Beautiful
Avenue.
there now.
Yeah, that one was a long time coming, but we did, this summer, we did remove that Landhart, Crosno property, the Falk property, the Ziegler house, and then there's one down on Roosevelt in Minnesota that is being demoed privately. So those are all good things. Small Cities Development Grant, we are looking to move forward, and I think at our next meeting, we'll have a kind of a grant writing agreement for the council's consideration that we talked about at EDA earlier tonight, but it's been, I think 2013 is our last application that we put in for small cities that wrapped up, I think, in 2017. So it's time to get back in the mix and try to get some funding for rehabbing some of our houses and commercial businesses. Working with staff on budget preparation. Don't forget on September 8th at noon, we've got our budget workshop. It's a Thursday. And then the Valley View Outlot A title work is being done. I would guess we'll be able to move forward and close on that in probably 3 weeks or so. So get that in hand. And then lastly, Railroad Days, I want to give a shout out to Jordan Goodwater, Kathleen Farrell, and Renee Kroll, and anybody else that spent a lot of time, but I know those three were kind of the ramrods of the operation from the chamber standpoint, and they spent many hours trying to facilitate all that, keep everybody happy, and I think the event was very successful. Also want to thank the staff from the city that helped out on Saturday and Friday as well. So that was a great weekend. Like I said at EDA, it was a lot of fun to be downtown and see it full of people. So that is all I have.
Second. Motion by Roy, second by Ron to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I'm gonna slide it in there one of these times.
What's that?
I said I'm gonna move to adjourn. Yeah.